Emma Lawson had always believed she could handle life on her own. She'd been living in a small apartment in Seattle for 3 years, paying rent on time, juggling 2 part-time jobs, and quietly building a life that felt stable until one rainy Tuesday changed everything. The cafe where she worked suddenly shut down, and her other job at the bookstore cut her hours. The little savings she had were already spent on groceries and her sister's medical bills. When the end of the month came, she stared at her bank account. Knowing the truth she didn't want to admit, she couldn't pay rent. The apartment was small but cozy, filled with the kind of warmth that only comes from making something yours. Photos of her sister hung by the kitchen, candles lined the window ledge, and an old clock ticked softly near the door. Now, every sound seemed heavier, like the apartment itself knew she might not be there much longer. Her landlord, Mr. Carter, lived on the first floor. He was in his late 50s, tall and calm, with a quiet dignity about him. He never raised his voice, never complained when tenants made noise, and always took time to say good morning. Emma respected him. He seemed like the kind of man who carried more stories than he told. But even good people had bills to pay, and she knew she couldn't hide from him forever. That Friday afternoon, she gathered her courage and went downstairs. Her hands trembled as she knocked on his door. When he opened it, she could smell coffee and hear the faint hum of jazz music in the background. "Emma," he said with a gentle smile, "what brings you down here?" She hesitated, twisting her hands together. "I can't pay this month's rent. I lost my job, and I just need a few weeks to get things back on track." Mr. Carter studied her for a moment, not with anger, but quiet understanding. "You've always paid on time," he said softly. "You've been a good tenant, Emma. I know times are tough," he sighed, rubbing his temple. "I wish I could give everyone a break, but I've got expenses. 2 taxes, repairs, the whole lot. Tell you what, I'll give you 2 weeks. Maybe something will turn around by then." Relief and fear hit her at once. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll figure something out." But that night, as the rain tapped against her window, she sat on her couch staring at her phone. Rejection emails from job applications filled her inbox. One after another, the words blurred into each other. "We appreciate your interest, but have decided to move forward with another candidate." She closed her eyes and pressed her palms to her face. How had life turned so quickly? The following days passed in silence. She tried selling some things online: an old camera, a pair of shoes, but the money barely covered food. Every time she saw Mr. Carter in the hallway, her stomach knotted. He never mentioned the rent again, but she could see the worry in his eyes when he looked at her. Then, on a gray Monday morning, there was a knock on her door. When she opened it, Mr. Carter stood there, but this time he wasn't alone. 2 other men were with him, both around his age, dressed in casual jackets. One had kind green eyes and a calm smile. The other carried a clipboard and an energy that seemed to fill the room. "Emma," Mr. Carter said, "these are my old friends, Tom and Richard. We've been working on a small local project together. Thought maybe we could talk?" She stepped aside, uncertain but polite. "Of course. Please, come in." They sat at her little kitchen table, the one she'd found at a thrift store years ago. The air felt heavy, like she was being evaluated, but their expressions were kind, not judgmental. Mr. Carter nodded toward her. "I told them a bit about your situation. They're helping me with something that might be a good fit for you." Emma frowned. "Fit for me? What do you mean?" Tom leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "We've been organizing a community outreach program. It's small, but it needs people who are reliable, good with communication, and willing to help. You've got the experience, and you could earn some income while things get back to normal." Her breath caught. "You mean you'd hire me?" Richard smiled. "Hire might be too big a word. It's more like working together for a cause, and yes, we'd pay you for your time. Not much, but something steady." Emma couldn't speak for a moment. Gratitude mixed with disbelief. "I don't know what to say." Mr. Carter gave her a reassuring nod. "Say yes. You've been helping people your whole life. Emma, this is just another way to keep doing that, to get back on your feet." That night, when they left, Emma sat alone at the table. staring at the business card they'd given her. Community Support and Housing Initiative. It didn't sound fancy, but it sounded like hope the next morning. She reported to this small office they mentioned a basement-level space just below her apartment. The walls were lined with old posters about charity drives and food banks. The desk wobbled slightly and the light flickered. But it felt real. Work. Purpose. Mr. Carter greeted her with coffee in hand. "You're right on time," he said. "That's a good sign." For the first few days, she handled paperwork and made calls to local donors. She answered emails, organized supplies, and even helped deliver boxes of food to nearby shelters. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt good. She was useful again. In the evenings, she'd often see Mr. Carter and his friends reviewing budgets, their laughter filling the quiet room. They treated her like one of them, never once making her feel small for her struggles. Tom cracked jokes to keep spirits high. And Richard always made sure there was coffee ready for everyone. One night, as she was locking up, Mr. Carter stayed behind to help her carry boxes. "You're fitting in well," he said, lifting one easily. "I didn't think anyone would give me a chance again," she admitted. He looked at her with warmth. "Everyone deserves a chance, especially people who work hard." His words stayed with her. It had been so long since anyone believed in her without expecting something in return. A week passed, then 2. She started feeling like herself again, laughing more, sleeping better, and finding comfort in the routine. But there were moments, quiet and unexpected. When she caught Mr. Carter looking at her, his eyes soft, thoughtful, as if he was remembering something from his own past. She didn't know what it meant, and she didn't dare ask. Then, one afternoon, she finished sorting papers. She found a note on her desk. "Meet me upstairs when you're done." See? Her heart skipped. She climbed the stairs to his apartment, unsure why she was nervous. He opened the door before she could knock. The room was warm, filled with the smell of baked bread. He gestured for her to sit. "I wanted to talk," he said, "about your rent." Her stomach dropped. "I know I'm behind. I'm trying." He raised his hand gently. "No, that's not it. I wanted you to know that your work here has already covered it. The hours you've put in, the dedication, it's more than enough. You don't owe me anything." Emma blinked, her voice trembling. "You're serious?" "Completely," he said, smiling faintly. "You've given back more than you know." For a moment, she couldn't speak. The kindness hit her deeper than she expected. "I don't know how to thank you." He shook his head. "You already have." When she left his apartment that evening, the city lights shimmered in the rain. She felt something shift inside her, a quiet warmth she hadn't felt in years. Gratitude, yes, but also something softer, something she couldn't quite name. She didn't know where life was taking her next. But for the first time in months, she wasn't afraid. She had work, purpose, and people who cared. She didn't have much, but maybe, she thought as she watched the rain fall, sometimes the smallest kindness could change everything. What Emma didn't know was that this was only the beginning. Because soon, one unexpected letter, one decision, would take the story somewhere she never imagined. Weeks passed, and Emma's life slowly began to feel steady again. The community project that Mr. Carter and his friends had started became more than just work for her. It became her escape. Her second chance. Every morning she'd walk down to the basement office with a cup of coffee in hand and a small sense of pride. It wasn't a high-paying job or a career, but it gave her a reason to wake up, get dressed, and keep moving forward. Mr. Carter was there most mornings before her, always reading the newspaper or sorting paperwork. His calm energy grounded everyone in the room. Sometimes, when she arrived late, he'd already have a mug of coffee waiting for her. "You're part of the team now," he'd say with a quiet smile. Tom and Richard were just as kind. Tom, the jokester of the group, always found ways to make Emma laugh, while Richard, quieter and thoughtful, often stayed late helping her organize donations. They were all good men, older, wiser, and genuinely invested in helping others. And for Emma, their faith in her meant more than money ever could. But it was Mr. Carter she found herself thinking about most. There was something different about him, the way he listened, the way he never rushed her when she spoke. He treated her with respect, as if her thoughts mattered. That kind of attention was rare. One Thursday afternoon, a storm rolled in just as they were closing up. The rain hit the windows like 1,000 whispers, and thunder rumbled somewhere in the distance. Tom and Richard left early, leaving Emma and Mr. Carter alone to finish some reports. "You don't have to stay," he told her. "You've done more than enough today." "I'd rather finish," she said, looking up from her desk. "It helps me feel productive." He chuckled softly. "I understand that." They worked in silence for a while, the soft hum of rain filling the room. Then, out of nowhere, he said quietly, "You remind me of someone I used to know. My wife. She was always trying to fix everything, even when she didn't have to." Emma froze, not sure how to respond. "You were married for 28 years, he said. "She passed away a few years ago. Cancer." His voice didn't break, but there was something in it, a heaviness that came only from deep love and loss. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. He nodded. "You never really stop missing someone. You just learn how to live with the space they left behind." The rain outside grew heavier, and for a moment neither spoke. Emma felt something shift inside her, an ache of empathy, a quiet understanding. "You must have loved her a lot," she said softly. "I did," he replied. "Still do, in a way." When she looked up, his eyes met hers. There was no romantic tension, no unspoken desire, just an honest human connection to souls who had both known loneliness. It was simple, pure, and unexpectedly comforting. That night, when she finally left, he walked her to her door, umbrella in hand. Before she went inside, he said, "You're stronger than you think, Emma. Don't forget that." She smiled faintly. "You keep saying that. One day I might believe it." I grinned. "You already do." Over the next few weeks, their bond deepened. They started having lunch together in the office, sharing stories about their lives. Emma told him about growing up in Portland, about her younger sister's health problems, about how she'd always dreamed of writing children's books but never had the courage to try. He listened with genuine interest. "You should," he told her one afternoon. "You have the heart for it." "Maybe one day," she replied, though she wasn't sure she believed it. As time passed, she began to notice how much she looked forward to seeing him. The way he said good morning, the way his eyes softened when she laughed. Small things, but they mattered. She tried not to overthink it. He was her landlord, her boss, her friend. That was all. Then one evening, Richard stopped by with news. "Tom and I are heading back east," he said. "We're retiring for real this time. The project's in good hands with you, too." Emma was stunned. "You mean just us?" Richard nodded. "You've earned it. You and Charles make a good team." After he left, she looked at Mr. Carter. "A good team, huh?" He smiled. "I'd say so." From then on, it was mostly the two of them. They spent long days organizing donations, managing calls, and planning small events for struggling tenants in the neighborhood. It wasn't easy, but it was meaningful work. Sometimes they stayed late talking about life, about how strange it was to find purpose in unexpected places. One night, after an especially long day, he offered to cook dinner. "You've been living on takeout," he said. "Let me fix something decent." She hesitated, but his kindness disarmed her. "All right," she said, "but only if I help." They cooked together in his small kitchen, laughing when she spilled sauce and pretending to argue over how much salt to use. It felt normal, natural, like two people who'd known each other for years. After dinner, they sat by the window watching the city lights flicker across the wet pavement. "Do you ever feel like life gives you people when you need them most?" he asked suddenly. She smiled. "Maybe, or maybe it's just that we notice good people more when we're broken." He looked at her thoughtfully. "Maybe both." There was a quiet moment after that, not awkward, not tense, just peaceful. She felt safe around him, something she hadn't felt in a long time. But deep down she knew this was delicate. The world wouldn't understand a friendship like theirs. People like to twist stories to find scandal where there was none. A few days later, she overheard a conversation in the hallway between two tenants. "Did you see Emma and Mr. Carter together again last night?" One whispered. "She's spending a lot of time with him." Her stomach sank. She didn't owe anyone an explanation, but she also knew how rumors could spread. That evening, she went downstairs and knocked on his door. "Charles, can I talk to you?" she asked, using his first name for the first time. He looked surprised but nodded. "Of course." "Come in," she sat down, trying to find the right words. "People are talking. About us. I don't want it to cause trouble for you or for me." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I figured that might happen eventually. You know how people can be." "I'm thinking maybe I should move," she said quietly, "before it gets worse." He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "You don't have to go. Let them talk. You've done nothing wrong." "I know," she said, "but it still hurts." He nodded slowly, his eyes softening. "I don't want you to go, Emma. This place. It's better with you here." Her breath caught. The way he said it, so simple, so sincere, made her heart ache. But she forced a smile. "I'll stay for now, just until things calm down." Over the next few weeks, things did quiet down. Life went back to its rhythm, but there was a new kind of silence between them, not uncomfortable, filled with things neither dared to say. She could feel it every time their hands brushed while passing papers. Every time their eyes met and lingered too long. Then one morning she arrived at the office to find a letter on her desk. Her name was written in Mr. Carter's handwriting. For a moment, she thought it was another thank you note. He often left small ones for the team. But when she opened it, her heart sank. "Emma, I wanted to tell you this in person, but I'm not good with goodbyes. My son in Vermont needs help with his business, and I've decided to go stay there for a while. I'll be leaving by the end of the week. The project will continue, and I know you'll keep it strong. You've brought so much good into this place. I'll always be grateful." Charles, she sat there, frozen, reading the letter again and again. He hadn't said anything about leaving. No hint, no warning. Just a letter, kind, final, and heavy with unspoken emotion. That evening she knocked on his door, but he didn't answer. Through the small window she could see boxes packed by the wall. He was really leaving. For the first time in months, she felt truly alone again. The apartment that had once felt heavy with worry now felt heavy with absence. She'd lost her job once, her stability once, but this felt different. She'd lost someone who had quietly rebuilt her faith in herself. That night, as the city slept and the rain fell softly, Emma sat by the window and whispered to the empty room, "Thank you, Charles." She didn't know it yet, but their story wasn't over. Life, as she was about to learn, had a strange way of bringing people back when you least expected it. Months passed after Charles left, and though the apartment complex still stood the same, everything felt different. The mornings were quieter. The office felt colder. Emma tried to keep herself busy, managing the donations, organizing events, and making sure the building's tenants still felt supported, but it wasn't the same without him at first. She'd check her phone every day, hoping for a message or call, but nothing came. Weeks turned into months, and silence grew heavier. She tried to tell herself it was fine, that maybe he was happy in Vermont, helping his son, starting a new chapter. Still, there were moments when she'd pass his empty office, or find one of his old notes in a drawer that her chest tightened with quiet sadness. By late autumn, the leaves outside turned gold and red. Emma had learned to smile again, though her laughter always carried a trace of longing. She had rebuilt her life with the tools he'd given her: confidence, kindness, and a sense of purpose. She even began writing stories again, small ones at first. Little children's tales inspired by the people around her. One chilly morning, she walked to the community center to deliver food boxes. As she helped an elderly couple load their car, one of the women looked at her and said, "You're that young lady from Carter's program, aren't you? He used to talk about you all the time." Emma froze. "He talked about me." The woman smiled warmly. "Oh, yes. Said you were the reason the project kept going." Emma didn't know how to respond. That night when she got home, she sat by the window, the same window where she'd once watched rainfall while missing him, and whispered, "I hope you're okay, Charles." Winter came early that year. The city was wrapped in gray skies and cold winds, and work slowed down as people stayed indoors. One late December afternoon, as she was closing the office, she heard a familiar voice behind her, still keeping the place running. "I see." She turned sharply, and there he was. Charles Carter stood by the door, snow on his coat. That same warm smile she'd thought she'd never see again. For a moment, she couldn't speak. "Charles." He stepped closer, looking both older and somehow lighter. "I wasn't sure you'd still be here." "I wasn't sure you'd ever come back," she whispered. He chuckled softly, brushing snow from his sleeve. "Neither was I." They stood there in a quiet moment that said everything words couldn't. Then, almost awkwardly, she smiled. "You look good. Vermont must have treated you well." "It was peaceful," he said. "But I missed this place. Missed the noise. Missed the work." He paused, his eyes softening. "And I missed you, Emma." The words hung between them like a breath neither wanted to release. She blinked, unsure how to respond. "I kept things going," she finally said. "Didn't want your work to fade away." Key smiled gently. "You didn't just keep it going, you made it better." They sat down in the small office, just like old times. He told her about Vermont, about his son's business. The long snowy days, the quiet nights that gave him too much time to think. "I realized I'd left more than a project behind," he said quietly. "I left people who mattered, especially one." Emma's heart pounded. "Charles." He looked at her, eyes steady. "You changed my life, Emma. You reminded me that kindness isn't weakness. That hope doesn't end with age." She felt her throat tighten. "You helped me first. You gave me a place when I had nothing." He smiled faintly. "Maybe we saved each other." The wind outside howled softly, and for the first time in a long while, she felt warm again. Over the following weeks, things returned to a familiar rhythm, but this time everything felt lighter. They worked side by side again, and the community responded with joy. The tenants welcomed him back with smiles and stories. And Emma noticed how naturally he fit in again, as if he'd never left. But something had changed between them. Their connection had deepened, not in a romantic or impulsive way, but in a quiet, soul-deep understanding. They didn't need to say much. Small gestures said enough. When he brought her coffee in the morning, when she stayed late to finish reports so he could rest, those little moments carried unspoken emotion. One evening, as they locked up the office, he said, "You know, I used to think life slowed down after 60. Turns out I was wrong." She laughed softly. "You don't seem like someone who slows down easily." He smiled. "Not when there's something worth staying for." Her heart fluttered at the words, but she didn't reply. She didn't need to dot as months passed. The project grew. Donations increased, and soon they were able to open a small reading corner for children in the building, an idea Emma had come up with. The day they opened it, Charles handed her a wrapped package. "This is for you," he said. Inside was a leather-bound journal. On the first page, in his handwriting, were the words, "Write your story. The world needs it." Her eyes filled with tears. "Charles." "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll use it," he replied with a gentle smile. And she did. Every evening after work, she wrote stories about love, loss, and second chances. Stories about kindness, about people who quietly changed each other's lives. She didn't know if anyone would ever read them, but it felt right. As spring approached, she started sending a few of her stories to small magazines. One afternoon, she received an email. Her first story was being published. She ran to tell Charles, breathless with excitement. "That's incredible," he said, smiling proudly. "I knew you could do it." "You believed in me more than I did," she said. He chuckled. "Sometimes that's what people need, someone to believe until they can do it themselves." The news spread quickly among the tenants. They threw her a small celebration in the lobby, complete with balloons and cupcakes. Emma looked around the room, all the people she'd helped, all the faces she'd grown to love, and she felt something she hadn't in years. Home that evening? When everyone had gone, Charles stayed behind to help clean up. They stood by the window just as they had once before. The city lights glowed softly, and for a moment, they simply watched in silence. "You know," he said quietly, "when I first met you, I thought I was just helping a tenant in trouble. I didn't realize I was meeting someone who would change everything." She smiled, her eyes glistening. "And I thought I was meeting my landlord. Turns out I was meeting my best friend." He nodded, eyes gentle. "That's the best kind of surprise life gives us." There was a warmth between them, not one that needed defining, not romance or obligation, but something stronger. They were two people who had seen each other at their lowest and helped each other rise again, years later. The community project became a citywide program. Emma's books began to reach more people, and she often credited Charles in interviews as the man who believed in second chances. When reporters asked if they were ever more than friends, she'd simply smile and say, "What we shared didn't need a name." It was enough. One crisp evening, years after their first meeting, she visited him at his house. He was older now, a little slower, but his smile hadn't changed. They sat by the fire, talking about old times, about the night it rained, the long days at the office, the laughter that had filled those gray walls. "Do you ever think about how strange it all was?" she asked. "You helping me staying here." He chuckled. "Strange? No, I think it was exactly what was supposed to happen." Before she left, he handed her one last note, short, simple, in his neat handwriting. "Thank you for bringing light into my last chapters." She hugged him tightly, tears stinging her eyes. "You brought light into mine first." When she walked home that night, she looked up at the stars and smiled. Life had been unpredictable, sometimes cruel, often beautiful, but every turn had led her here. And though love had never been spoken, it had lived quietly between them, patient and steady, in the kind of way that didn't fade.